this, uh, you know, yeah, a little bit. So, well, that's this. Um, so, of policing, we can use as such, and different policing. We saw that was all change was implemented or why implemented. And so, I, let's just pretend it's the case, and your professor from now, some you might, I don't know if people will call it, you know, um, the militarization and all that's been going on. So it may happen. Hopefully, we get some reforms out of all of this. Um, one thing I always teach from a procedure, but when you look at we tend uh, military. For something in the 9/11 attacks and had been stopped. Uh, Go because uh, command structure, the ICS, as well as process, whereas agencies or that like the 9/11 towers have a command structure in place. Because what happened in 9/11 was you had fire departments from different agencies, you had police from different agencies, and it was unclear who was in command, and you had different orders coming from different areas, and so that kind of streamlined that command structure to make things better. And for a while, there was a shift, or at least a push, towards getting rid of the 10 codes and starting to just use talk over the radios that came out of that, because he's used different 10 codes. And so if you say 1010 to one person in one agency, it's a fight in progress. In another place, it means, can you repeat that, which is usually 10-9. But, and so, different things, 10-100 is usually officer needs help, but it could be something else in a different department. And so if they're hearing things, it's difficult to communicate when people have different codes. Uh, take off as much as the other things did. And many departments still use the 10 codes and the signals even today, and I know Kennesaw does, and many other local departments. Uh, Part of that is, to say a quick 10-4 or something, then message received or something like that. But another thing is too, you don't want to use plain talk when you're telling an officer over the radio that someone is wanted for murder when they're standing right next to you, because that person might go along cooperatively, they might start fighting you, they might run. And so when you use a 10 code for, I forget what most. I remember them all because I'm so rusty. But anyway, if you say this person is 1055, that person doesn't know what 1055 means. You do. And so it's a way of kind of communicating without that person hearing you. So they started using earbuds, kind of like you see with the Secret Service. And so that allows them to communicate. Terrorism. This chapter talks a lot about terrorism, and you have your domestic terrorism, which when most people think about terrorism, they don't really think about domestic terrorism, right? But we do have domestic terrorism. We have this, hey, we have neo Nazis, all this different kind of stuff. These right wing terrorists, and are considered terrorists. Uh, you know, we think about the Islamic extremists. It's just that they're domestic terrorists. Um, you know, if you think about it, enforcement agencies consider the domestic terrorists to be more of a problem, and more of a threat than your international terrorists, because the international terrorists don't do as much as often. Well, when they do, then it's a big deal. But there's very little that your local law enforcement agencies can do about that. That's terrorism. I'm not going to bore you all with. No, that's kind of interesting from this chapter is the difference between a state-sponsored terrorist and a lone wolf terrorist. And so, state-sponsored terrorists, they get funding, support, and training and all these things from a government of another country. Hopefully, hopefully it's not coming from our country. And then you have your lone wolf terrorists, who are just individual person, acting on their own without any attachment or help from any group or government. You know, it terrorists are actually the most difficult person. 10,000 people, an organization of 10,000 people, it's much harder for them to fly under the radar than it is just one person, right? And so, we don't really know what the motivation is of a lot of these traditional uh, saying, attacks on computer systems, because we get so much spam at KSU, with different links and people pretending to be different people emailing us. I got an email just the other day and it said it was from Jennifer McMahon Howard, who is our department chair. But if you look at the actual email address, it was from departmentchair@gmail.com. And so, you're always trying to, you know, I don't know what would be the benefit of hacking into the system at KSU. I mean, maybe the FBI. There's plenty of banks. There's plenty of entities out there where it might be of some interest to hack into it. But I mean, you're not really going to get very much if you do hack into the main and do some, maybe have some fun, or you might get to some sensitive academic records, which research methods last semester. I mentioned it. When you get that kind of stuff, look at the address, because don't just look at the weird email address at Gmail or something like that, which is another reason why I usually tell you all you can or your name is on a Gmail account and email me and pretend to be you. Picking you, and if there's a difference between the two, computer from cyber, have an account, uh, other things, but then have a guest account that you use as your primary account, so that on something or something gets into is just the key viruses and all this other stuff. Possible to do in a guest account, but it's just much harder. About it before until I talk account. Uh, every once in a while, you have depends on police. Big one. Uh, What's some PD going to do against the Russian hackers? There's nothing. They don't have any jurisdiction in Russia. And if you think about it as well, I mean, your average uh, dealing with irregular street crime, they're going to need a whole different set of skills to deal with this agencies that have it's essentially a detective unit that's enforce traffic. And that we're going to see accountability. We have uh, uh, in police brutality. You have a duty to intervene and to stop this, right? Actually passing those laws. When it gets into that, even if and tell on them, uh, but at the same time they won't lie for them if they do get called in and asked about what happened, because they know that if they get caught lying, they're immediately fired, no questions asked. But I think that we do need to have a duty to report these things. Uh, and, so, big issue because someone recorded it with one of those old, big, huge camcorders. And that just happened that someone had those, and those got a little bit more, camcorders are a little bit more prolific evidence of these things to say, well, look, this is, you know, what either one of you says happened. I'm looking, I can watch the video myself. What you say happened is really your interpretation of these events. The Walter Scott too. That he didn't. He didn't. He shot goes over there and plants it next to him. Uh, Walter Scott. He wasn't in state court, as I recall. They had a hung jury. Uh, uh, Infringing upon Walter Scott's rights. 20 years for that. Uh, yeah, so much beat that dead horse as we already crossed bridges. But uh, um, you know, uh, they're public health issues and not issues for the police. They'll tell you that they'd be perfectly happy if they didn't have to deal with those things. Think about these things and move on and thing to say because had I not seen that interview, I would have thought that they just want to defund them, which is essentially the same as abolish have any money. But about how the police as much as we've just created laws to make these things illegal, but people with mental health and homeless and drug addictions are not hurting anybody. And was mainly dealt with. People with mental health were kept in mental hospitals and asylums and stuff like that, and then just kind of stripped down a lot of these things and took away a lot of these to provide. Fiction has gone way dealing with them rather than uh, about it. I think I could probably get behind some of my thoughts, especially since it's the end of class. Um, so your textbook had a few predictions that I thought I would enforcement agencies. The Patriot Act, the USA Freedom Act, and stuff like that has actually given a lot more power to police agencies. Uh, Interesting. Where we have, for the knowledge, a very strong conservative majority. It's six in the Supreme Court to three. Um, you know, three liberal appointees, uh, which is going to really the Supreme Court rules on various different things and various different things that like the constitutionality of new Patriot Act. which gives the police rights to know not or and the Freedom Act, so it'll be interesting to see how these things play out. Going to remain important, and I think they always should have been important. I think that the citizens, you see something, say something. I think that's a good one. If you see an unattended bag in an airport, say something about it. The police can't be everywhere, and they can only solve what they're made aware of. If they don't know about it, they can't do anything about it. And this not only goes for regular crimes, but I also want to emphasize the fact that as we talk to higher up police administrators about police corruption and misuse, abuse of authority, things like that, many reports about this. Make these complaints, whether it be I think I mentioned to you all, it used to be a lot of the names as are police officer. If there's an officer who has wronged you or anyone in some way, there is an office within the department and sometimes a citizen review board to investigate that officer and perhaps fire them or bring charges against them and carry out this process. But none of that's going to happen if that initial complaint isn't filed. It's a crime as well. Don't know about it. Do that. Uh, you know, reform policing is maybe you need to, and you um, be more force used in a more dangerous neighborhood and see if to kind of give you a little bit more knowledge. So, um, so intelligence-led and evidence-based policing, I think, is definitely going to go up. We're going to start using many more of. Interesting to see what's going to happen with that. Whether it's going to continue. be some curtailing of it. Mentioned earlier is actually testing a new gun holster where draws his weapon out of his gun holster, then his body camera immediately turns on. And I think this is a great, idea because, you know, to have their cameras on from the time they, respond to a call to the corner, and someone, comes at you and tries and starts shooting at you or something like that, you know, your first thing is going to say, okay, well, I need to get my gun and shoot back, right? Well, I've got to turn on my body camera because I can't fire back unless my body camera's on, because then you're losing crucial time there where this person's going to be able to get in, a couple of seconds, which could be those couple of seconds that are different, or the difference between new type of technology that I just thought I would mention, that it's going to be it's an automatic holster, and I don't think every officer in Atlanta has it right now. I think it's just something they're trying out to see how that works. But I think it's technologies. So body cameras, two reasons that they're good. Officers will be aware of recording and not engage in illegal activity. I think I mentioned earlier that traffic stops. If you inform the person they're being recorded, they tend to be a little bit more well behaved because they don't want against them. And if anybody does engage in any illegal activity during the stop, whether it be the police officer or a suspect, there's strong evidence to support what happened. It's not really a he said she said issue. Uh, this has been used for quite some time. It shows locations of police cars and stuff like that. No, there is no national database on police misconduct. BJS is trying to work this out. Um, the Washington Post has been compiling a list of databases on this because base implementing an evidence-based approach with pension systems. Officers who get some complaint that's a rookie officer, you can often it might just be accepted of crime detection, biometrics, the handprint methods of locking stuff. I mean, we've got you'll probably know, we've got biometrics on our iPhones now where it uses your thumbprint to unlock it. The index system, sorry, CODIS. This is where everybody's DNA goes to. If you're convicted of a felony, you're required to submit DNA to this database. And also, if they collect DNA evidence from a crime scene, it also goes in here. I think I mentioned that during system. I think I told y'all most people don't put an I here. This is called APHIS. Facial recognition systems are a big one in Europe. Not quite as big around here. We do have the cameras, but to my knowledge, nobody quite has the facial recognition systems up and running. Plate recognition systems, on the other hand, are becoming quite prolific, and many departments are implementing them in order to identify stolen vehicles, people with criminals driving their cars. You can't remember how many license plates per second, but it's just ridiculous. And scan, and so this is way more effective than a police officer just trying to keep an eye out for, one, he knows about. And so these things are going to be quite interesting how they're implemented. Other technology, X-rays. I think I told y'all before. Atlanta has a gunshot detection system. So if there is a gunshot fired in the city, it detects the concussion from it and then automatically turns the cameras on in that area to see what's going on. CCTVs, what they have in Atlanta with the cameras. Drones are going to be used too, and are being used in some situations because you can fly a drone much cheaper than you can fly a helicopter, right? Sniffer technologies are used primarily in prisons and stuff to detect cell phone radio waves coming from the cell phone, so to speak. Other technologies of computer and internet, searches for emails, keystroke logging, tracking cell phones. Tracking cell phones is actually a big one that they'll use in bigger cases. In Virginia Beach, there was a case where there was an off-duty police officer found dead in the ditch, and they had absolutely no lead, no suspects, no nothing. And so then they went back and pulled the cell phone data to look and see whose cell phones were in that area during the estimated time of death, and then they were able to identify. Now, of course, you can't convict someone of murder just because their cell phone was in the area when a police officer was murdered. But that does give you a pretty good list of suspects to go and talk to, right? And see what they were doing, why they were there, who they were with, all of these things, and then you can kind of narrow it down from there. And then once you narrow it down, you could, get, probable cause to go and search their house and track, test their hands for GSR and various other things that you might do in an investigation. Mentioned, mobile data terminals. These are just the last. Pretty much every police car has a computer in it nowadays. So stuff good, for officer safety as well. or something, then it's going to, drastically, uh, you know, impact the way that you're going to handle that, and it can help with officer safety. Amount of intelligence we can give officers in the field, the better they're going to be able to perform their jobs, and the safer they're going to be able to. Implications, for this. One thing, effective, and what are the costs of this technology, right? Out, when you're thinking about privacy. I have for this lecture for class. Uh, Final exam will be coming up, so please do not forget to do that. And I hope you all have a good, break, and get some of that without having to complete any school assignments. And I wish you all the best of luck in your future endeavors. And please let me know if there's ever anything I can do to help you. And always happy to. And with that, I will bid you adieu and say thanks for sticking around till the end of class. And I hope you all have a good one. All right, bye.